Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind and Reflect, where we believe in the universal truth that nothing happens by coincidence or by mistake. And we are here to share our life stories and adventures with you. My name is Deb Miller.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Doyle. Hi, Deb.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It feels like it's been kind of a minute since we've spoken and
Yeah,
recorded.
it has been. We had a
So
little
we have to jump right in. We
we had
do.
a little I don't even know what you call it. What do you call
Let's
it?
just call it a snafu,
Oh my
perhaps.
God.
A
Last,
snafu.
yes. So I'm
All right.
it's
Tell
like
it.
it's like a tater tot, the tater
Oh,
tot.
God.
uh,
I would kill for a tater tot instead of this.
I know. I know. When we started this podcast, we said that we're not doing any editing and we're just kind of like letting it flow. But last week we recorded, and I don't know if anybody was listening, but at the end of our time together, Sue went her screen went blank. So I was like, oh, I guess we lost Sue. Her internet must be down. So I'm just going to close the meeting out, and I said to close the podcast out, and I said goodbye and namaste and all that. And then I went on to log into a webinar that I needed to be on. And it was a couple hour long webinar. So I was watching that. And then I kind of was getting up to stretch. And, the camera's still on. And I'm walking around the
Okay,
room.
but you had no idea that the camera was still on.
No, because I
You
forgot
have to, that
press.
has to be framed up here.
Right. I forgot to end the meeting. The podcast, excuse me. I forgot to click stop record. So Sue calls me, and you're trying to upload the video onto YouTube, or you texted me and said, there's something going on with YouTube. I can't upload the video. I can only upload the audio. I said, oh, that's weird. So I grabbed the audio, brought it over to BuzzFeed, and it was telling me that it was too long. The length was 4 hours, and it was unable to convert it to MP3 because it was too long. 4 hours. I'm like, geez. So I start watching it to just see what was going on. And lo and behold, there's the podcast, and then there's me looking at the screen, watching the thing. And then I get up, I start wandering around the room, and apparently I felt like I needed to change clothes. I don't know why, but I needed to change clothes. And I needed to do it right in front of the camera. I needed to do it. I needed to strip down facing the camera. I needed to check out my belly and look in the mirror and go, oh, I really wish I could have a tummy tuck. And this is what it would look like. And I did all the things. And I was like, oh my God, I literally had my own webcam show up. And so I call you and you were unavailable. And I text you and I said, take it down. We gotta take it down because this time it was still live on YouTube.
Yeah, so I was able to get it on YouTube. However, this is how our process goes. I get it to YouTube and then I email you the video and the audio like in our Gmail account so you can then take it to Buzzsprout. And
Mhm.
so it got on, and I kept like getting an error message, but it wouldn't tell me that it was too long. So it didn't even like click. It just kept getting this error message. I'm like, that's weird. And your text message is like, first you're like, okay, give me a call when you can. And then you must have kept watching it and you were like, oh my God, 911. Like you have got, and I'm like, and I'm on the phone with my daughter. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. I gotta go. And you're like, take it down now. And you sent me a snippet. And I was like, oh my, But the first thing I thought about was, this is honestly what I thought. And I told you this when I was walking the dog and I nearly wet my pants. I'm like, how did a bra commercial get infused into our podcast? It's weird. And I'm like, oh my God, like maybe somebody wants to sponsor us and they're showing us like this bra ad. And
Oh, I
am
only
freaking
wish.
howling. And I'm like, oh my God, delete, delete.
I only wish. I
So,
only wish it was a professional model in a bra wanting to sponsor us, but it wasn't. So I have to admit to you that this is very typical behavior of me. Clueless.
well, I did have to say that I catapulted right back to like 7th and 8th grade because it was just like, this is exactly what would happen.
Yeah, it
Exactly what would happen.
just cluelessness on my end.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe somebody did see it. I hope not. I don't think it was up long enough for anybody to see it, but I'm definitely not running for political office anytime soon because somebody would get their hands on that.
Oh my God. It was actually on YouTube, but we hadn't sent out like a social media post saying it was up there. So I don't think anybody saw, but that's the reason, just truth be told, that there is no episode 22. And
Yes,
you're not seeing things. It skips from 21 straight
23.
to 23.
That was
Oh my God,
horrifying.
it was
But
so funny.
anyways, learned my lesson the hard
So
way. So
funny.
here we are today.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, um, nice to see you. Spring has sprung here. I'm feeling a little allergy-ish, so
Mm,
forgive me if I cough or sniffle.
You're
But
forgiven.
I will take it based on the fact that it's sunny and 70s around here lately, so
Very
it
nice.
feels
Very
good.
nice.
So I was thinking, the other day, um, truth be told, uh, I'm a very, very stubborn person, right? I'm very stubborn. Like I am Capricorn to the nth degree, right? And
Mhm.
so it's very difficult for me to, I don't want to say forgive because I do forgive easily. It's very difficult for me to like be the one to give in. Like if I have an argument with like my significant other or, somebody else, typically he's the only person that I argue with, but um and I find myself like sort of exploring that, like what is the big deal of saying, I'm sorry, or and then I thought back, um to my past marriage and my past, like you know being very stubborn, and I'm like, I used to say I'm sorry all the time just so I didn't have to like have a confrontation. I would just say, oh, sorry, didn't mean it. Oh, sorry, didn't mean it. And that wasn't healthy either, right? And I'm just wondering, like, kind of where that came from. And I'm sure you see it in the work that you do in the addiction space, where parents of children or spouses, the sober spouses, are constantly saying, I'm sorry. Like they're almost like attaching some sort of worth to their sorry or something like that, just to not upset the other person or to just take blame, thinking that if they said sorry, the person wouldn't drink at the argument or something like that. Tell me, like, it kind of, it feels like sort of like a codependent type of situation, but tell me what you think.
There is a distinct difference between being codependent and saying you're sorry just because you don't want to deal with whatever's in front of you.
Mhm.
The I'm sorry, I'm dog sitting and somebody just rang the doorbell. So I'm gonna ignore that. Anyways, codependency you see a lot in the world of substance use disorder. I've seen it mostly with mothers who have a child who's dependent, okay? And that is so incredibly, because it's unhealthy. There's a way to say you're sorry in a relationship to keep it and it's healthy and to keep the relationship healthy. And then there's a
Okay.
way that you can you're saying you're sorry when it's not your fault, when all you want to do is make that other person happy, and they are going to, and you know that the only way that's going to happen is if you surrender and say, all right, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'll give you an example. I was talking to this woman the other night who her son is going through it. He's in rehab right now. Only child. She is a single mom. I mean, he's older. He's, I think in his 40s or something, but has struggled with substance use disorder for many, many years. And he calls her several times a day from his rehab facility. And if she doesn't answer the phone, and he just berates her, send me this, send me that, do this, do that. And the minute she puts up a boundary, he calls her all sorts of names and tells her what a loser she is and this, and it's just awful. In order for her to feel better about herself, she'll say to him, okay, all right, what do you need? And she'll give him whatever he wants. And then that way he goes, thanks, Mom, you're the best. Love you, love you, love you, love you. And then she gets to feel some relief.
Feel like attaching her self-worth to his
Absolutely.
approval.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's codependency. I feel like in some way we're all codependent
I agree with that. I agree
yeah.
with that, especially people who I think are in marriages and relationships, and sometimes, there is that making yourself feel better by providing the person with what you perceive or what they have told you that they need, even though it goes against logic, right?
Yeah. As long as it's balanced, codependency, when it is and I codependency, everybody's like, it's such a bad word, oh my God, I don't want to be codependent, oh, they're codependent on that one and I'm codependent on this one or whatever. It's different, but it can be very, very poisonous. It can be, codependency can be very dangerous because you lose your own identity. Your identity becomes what that person thinks of you. And that person is usually not in the right frame of mind. When you're in the disease, you have very, very selfish and self-centered thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
so the world revolves around you. And if you're not going to jump on that ride with them, then they're going to rip you apart. And that's going to make you feel really bad because you're sitting there going, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not drinking or drugging. I'm not gambling our life savings away. I'm not doing any of that. So why do I have to be the person that takes it all, and I'm the bad person? It's all part of the sickness of substance use disorder. But it's natural. And I said this before on this podcast, like one of the sayings is, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And so I know that I'm like that. When my son is unhappy or struggling with something, I want to fix it immediately because I feel his pain. I feel his pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so my natural reaction is to fix it. Whatever's happening, like, and I can't do that. I've learned over the years that he needs to learn to self-soothe, so to speak,
Right,
but
right.
I know that feeling of being like obsessively thinking about my son because he is in a bad place. He's not
Mm-hmm.
happy about something, or he's sad, or he's frustrated, or whatever that might be. And so people might say, well, you're just codependent on him. Well, perhaps, but perhaps I'm just a mom, perhaps I'm just,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a little bit of that for sure. I mean, I guess, and I think it goes in phases in relationships and in, I think partner relationships as well as family dynamic kind of thing. What do you think about the note? Something just came to me, in regards to the codependency, is what do you think about, do you think the person who is trying to provide these things does not have the skill set or the capability to, I guess, validate themselves? So that there's a level of validation that comes with fixing the problem, or sending the money, or sending the clothes, or smoothing things over. So
Yeah. Yeah, of course, because that's the only way that they can feel like they're controlling the situation that's out of control. This woman
mhm,
used to send her son a pair of shoes. She sent him a pair of shoes because he didn't have and expensive shoes, and they would show up at the center, and he'd immediately give them away to somebody. And she goes, "Well, clearly that other person needed it more than my son." And now he's barefoot. So she sends another pair and another pair and another pair, and he keeps giving them away. And I finally said to her, "Stop sending them," because it was driving her nuts. I said, "He can, walk around in the slippers that they give him. Like, he's clearly telling you this is a game for him. Let's see
mhm,
how much I can take from my mother. Let's see how much,
mhm.
she's going to give." And, but she was getting fulfilled knowing that in some small way, shape, or form, she is helping him. But you're not helping somebody when you're enabling them. And people who
So
are,
what do you say to that person to kind of break that cycle of doing things for others, putting yourself on the back burner because you don't, basically don't know how to self-soothe. You don't know how to self-validate. We had a conversation the other day offline about, it's okay to pat yourself on the back and say,
yeah,
what, I'm doing a really good job. I may have tripped up today or yesterday or the day before, but I am doing well. I'm doing good. I'm proud of myself,
yeah,
kind of thing. And so how do you get, as the addict is getting the help that they need, right? What do
mhm,
you say to that codependent person, or that person who enables the addict because they don't know how to self
yeah.
validate?
Right. And what I would say, and what I do say is, your son, and we're just going to use this woman as an example. I'm not going to use names or anything, but he is in a place right now where he is safe and he is under supervision. So this is the time that you need to work on yourself, because she's just as sick as he is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're an enabler, you're a people pleaser, you have low self-esteem, you try to control the situation, you are enabling behaviors, you're doing all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things. That's your sickness.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, you're so focused on the other person's needs and emotions and all of that, that you're not working and on processing your own emotions. And so everything becomes outward bound, nothing is
Right.
inward. So you have to now take all of that energy that you are putting outwards and look at yourself. And you have to say to yourself, I'm part of the problem here. I'm part of the problem because I'm letting this happen. And I get it. It is so hard. Many people have had to kick their children out of the house, even though they have had no place to go, but you're setting a boundary. And
Right.
it is going to actually save that person's life, because the more comfort you give to them, the more that they're going to, that's just adding fuel to the fire. You think you're helping, you think you're giving them a safe place, you're doing this, you're doing that, but it really, the disease of addiction,
Yeah.
it's hard. That's why they call it a family disease. Every single person is affected by it.
It kind of, I remember having a conversation with my therapist about setting boundaries where, um, you know, there was somebody in my life that, took some liberties to speak to me a certain way.
Mhm.
And, all I wanted to do was say, you are not allowed to speak to me that way. But
Mhm.
what she explained to me, just like this, the mother, this mother talking to their child, she said, people can speak to you any way they choose, right?
Mhm.
It's whether you, and you don't have, that's not in your circle of control, is the way
Right.
people speak to you, treat you, react to you, none of that. But what you do have, what is in your circle of control is a choice to whether or not you hop in the ring with them.
Mhm.
You don't have to hop in the ring, which means are not receiving that attitude or what they're saying. And that in and of itself is setting a boundary,
Absolutely. It's your reaction.
and
Is you don't
just
have
saying,
control over.
right. And she said, listen, just like this mother could say, just like I next time this happens, this is what I will say is, I can see that you're upset. This is not the time to talk about it.
Mhm.
Why don't we wait until have your thoughts together or you're not as upset? And if you still want to talk about it, we can talk.
Right.
I'm not having this conversation right now.
You know what, Sue, and a lot of this is driven by fear of rejection or abandonment.
Right. 100%.
It really is, because you feel like if you speak your truth and you stand up to this person, then they're going to leave and never speak to you again. If you
Right.
say to them, you got to move out, you need to find your own place, get a job, whatever, you set up those boundaries, they're going to throw in your face, like, if you do this to me, I'm never going to speak to you again. And as a mom,
Right. That's your
like,
worst fear.
that's your worst fear. But they're not going to be able to come back to you until they're healthy anyways. And then it's a whole different scene. And people, you get scared, like, well, what if they, die? And what if their addiction takes them? And what I say to people that, are going through this, I will always say every single person has their own higher power and their own path in this world. And there is nothing that you can do or
Right.
say that is going to change the trajectory of their life. It is already done.
Mm-hmm.
So what you
Yeah.
need, yeah.
It's, you're right. Absolutely. 100% agree with you. Agree with you. For me, it used to be, I needed to state, you are not allowed to treat me that, you are not allowed to this, you are not allowed to that, because I felt like if I didn't say it with force, I was somehow giving them permission
Mm.
to say those things to me or treat me in a certain way. And I have learned over the course of doing a lot of things wrong, and having to apologize on the back end for my behavior because I did not react well to what was going on. Um, it's, at the end of the day, it's not it's their, I guess, cross to bear, burden to bear. It's their path. They needed to, and just because I say nothing, I, I can't interpret that as giving them permission. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I feel like this woman is like, almost saying, okay, well, if I don't do this, I'm giving him permission to still be angry at me or not call me or not this or not that, and
But what speaks louder than silence? Nothing. If you reach
correct,
out to somebody and you say something,
correct,
they do not respond, that silence is deafening. It sends a pretty clear message when somebody
correct.
doesn't respond, especially if you show up to the fight and you're getting no response. That sends a very
Mm-hmm.
clear message. I would much rather somebody come at me than ignore me. I would rather
Yeah.
like engage and then engage in this than ignore me, because that message is sending very clear, I'm not participating in this.
Mm-hmm.
It's, to me anyways, I don't read it like, oh, good, I scared them away. I read it like, oh, they're
Right,
they're
exactly,
shutting me down.
exactly.
They are
Right.
shutting
And
me.
when I reacted in the past poorly, and it's not a perfect science, so there are
No.
times I still react poorly. Um, it just fueled the fire.
Yeah.
But by like what my counselor said was just say, listen, I hear you, but I'm not doing this right now because you're too upset.
It's so hard though.
So
It's
hard,
when
but
somebody comes at you,
you
you just
know,
want to be like,
of
ah.
course, of course, you want to defend yourself. You want to take your stance. You want everybody to hear you. And at the end of the day, you're wanting everybody to hear you, and getting louder is actually works in reverse,
Yeah. Yeah, you're
you know?
stepping up to you're just, yeah, you guys are feeding
Right.
off of each other. And nothing, because when you're dealing with somebody who is in their throes of addiction, they're not thinking clearly. Okay. So they're not going to be able to have any kind of conversation that's going to make sense, or that is going to be fruitful for either party
Mm-hmm.
involved. Okay. So, and then when you're dealing with like a spouse or a friend or whatever, that's not necessarily under the influence or has any kind of issue like that, but you're in such a defensive mode, you're not going to hear each other anyways.
Correct.
So it really is best to just step away. And that's why they say pause, pray, proceed. Pause, take some deep breaths, and then just, for me, it's like, help me God get through this, and then proceed. And by that time,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, let's table this and talk another time, because you and I are not going to hear each other at all. But
Right.
it's difficult because I want to rock 'em
Right.
sock 'em. I want to show up and start,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
but it's very difficult. And back to the enabling thing, because I think a lot of people who listen to us, clearly they have been relating to having somebody in their life with drug or alcohol problem, or spending or eating or gambling or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that might be. Um, and for the person that's not, and they have to bear the weight of the mess that the other one is making in their life. You know, we came to this world as individuals. Okay. We have our own spirit, we have our own soul. And over time, life happens, relationships happen, all of this happens, and it just kind of adds these layers to who we are and who we've become.
Mm-hmm.
But when you strip all that crap away, we still are just, we're still spirits, right?
Yes.
And we're here on this earth really to be true to ourselves. And you're not going to lose anything that wasn't meant to be lost when you decide to find yourself again. You have maybe taken a detour from your purpose by being in this relationship or doing whatever. You've taken a detour, but it's never, you're always going to end up in the place that you're supposed to be. And in the place that you're supposed to be is never a place of pain and heartbreak and sorrow and anger and shame. It is never meant to be that. That's not part of
Agreed.
who you're supposed to be on this earth. But we all end up with layers of that. And so once we start to shed it, you're going to be freer than you ever thought you could be. It just takes some time and it takes practice.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It unfortunately at sometimes the dynamic has gone on for so long that two people, whether it's, a non-addict with an addict in their family, or a husband and a wife, or siblings, or a child to a parent, and vice versa, they don't they don't even know how to be a different way because the dynamic is so ingrained. And putting the weapons down, putting everything down takes a lot of rawness and vulnerability to say, okay, like, I'm willing to do this so we don't go back to that.
Right. It takes a lot
And
of
it's
courage.
takes a
A
lot of
lot of
courage. It takes
a
a
lot of
lot of
courage.
courage. Yes. Yes.
But what you need, what I want people to understand, and I have to remind myself of this as well. Um, it can be done. It does take a lot of work. It can be done. And that's the freedom that you're supposed to feel. You got to trust in your higher
Mm-hmm.
power that once you surrender that he's got your back and you're going to be held up, your spirit guides are around you and you're never alone. It's just a matter of asking for that support. But it is very difficult because people are
Mm-hmm.
in marriages with families. They don't want to destroy that, but it does come to it. There will come a time when it's very clear whether or not you're supposed to be part of that or not. And
Mm-hmm.
decision that you need to make. It will happen, but you have to have courage to get
That's
at,
hard.
to do next
Yeah.
steps. And people will say to me, well, I don't understand, like, how do I do that? Well, there's hundreds of thousands of people that are in the same spot or have been in the same spot that are willing and able to help guide you.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to find the right support group, Al-Anon or even AA and all of those, there's lots of
Mm-hmm.
help.
Counselor, therapist.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get it. It's very liberating and very freeing, though,
Mhm.
when you stop hanging your self-worth on somebody else, or
Mhm.
your validation, or your self-esteem, or your, what you feel and think about yourself on somebody else.
Oh yeah.
It's so freeing because you're
My
like,
first
oh,
my first marriage was towards the end when things got really bad. It was all about me trying to get attention, and prove that I was worthy of being a wife and a mother and somebody that you know please don't cheat on me, please don't do the drugs, please
mm-hmm,
don't spend the money, please. All these addictions were happening and I was just dying for my self-worth went down the drain and I was not getting a crumb from him. And then what did I do? I started self-medicating because I just felt so bad about myself
mm-hmm.
in so many different ways. And it took a long time for me to find my self-worth. It really did. And sometimes I slip backwards, man. Sometimes I'm triggered.
Yes,
I feel,
absolutely.
like,
Absolutely. I'm sure it's one of those things, well, if I could just make a better meal, he'll stop doing this. If I could just, you know, if I could just give him one more pair of shoes, he'll
Mm.
stop calling and be grateful that I gave him the shoe, you know what I mean? And it's just all of that has to come from within. You know,
It
you
doesn't
have
matter.
to,
It does not matter how perfect you are. It does not matter how pretty you are, how perfect you are, what shape you're in, how much money you make, what kind of job you have. It has nothing will make somebody love you if if they don't, or if they are in their illness. All they love at that point is their drugs and alcohol. That's their first love. That's their only love. You can't
and
compete.
then you have to protect yourself, and you have to
That's
know that
right.
you're worthy of that protection. And yeah, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Well, keep doing your good work, girl. This woman is
Fine.
so blessed to have you in her life, guiding her and helping her, and
Thank you.
you
You know,
know,
you just wish you could snap your fingers and have them get over the tough part and see how amazing life is on the other side. But you can't,
I
everybody's got
know,
to go through their own
I know.
process.
Their own process, their own journey, their own enlightenment, right? Their own transformation.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So this time
Well,
we're going to actually stop the recording on time, and I am not going to strip down in
no
front of.
more bra models on Rewind and Reflect. But we'd love to hear from everybody.
Yes,
You can
indeed.
keep your bra shots to yourselves,
Oh my God.
but rewind and reflect with us at gmail.com, or message myself or Deb on social media. We would love to hear from all of you if you have something in mind that you would want, you know, a topic, or if you have something that you'd like to tell us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
Until next time, goodbye.
Namaste. Love you all.
Love you.